What's up, Funkers? We are back. Been a couple weeks without a recording, and finally back on the microphone. Been busy, really busy this year. And I know people like to just say that, but it feels like one day I'm in Oklahoma, next day I'm in Dallas. Shout out JSX Airlines. Really excited about this one today, Nige. I've got Nigel Gorbold, who I met sort of randomly when he signed up for the Funk Futures golf tournament a couple years ago, and I had no idea who he was. So we decided to get together, grab some lunch in his backyard in Boulder, and I've built a pretty nice friendship since. Nigel's repping East Daley, and we'll get to all of that stuff. But before we do that, Nigel, you know what we do here on What the Funk. You've heard a few episodes. Who are you, man? Who is Nigel Gorbold?
It's a pretty loaded question.
That's how we do it.
I'm a father of four and two dogs. Live in Colorado. Enjoying life, living with my family here in Colorado. And I'm a proud oil and gas guy, right? It's a little unique to be based in Boulder, Colorado, and be an oil and gas guy, but also shout out to JSX, do a lot of traveling for work down to Houston and Dallas. And I'll say, just my one little plug, I'm not sponsored by JSX, but if JSX could get a Denver to Houston leg,
oh my God,
then I wouldn't need to fly commercial ever again.
Ever.
It's a game changer. It's a game changer. So
they need to sponsor this podcast. I've been talking about them on here a little bit. Like, we've been plugging them. I'm finally flying on them for the first time next week. But the word's getting out there.
That's great.
The fact that they do Broomfield, right? It's going to be dope.
You're going to be ruined. You're going to be ruined. So for anybody who doesn't know, JSX flies kind of hop on, hop off, semi-private like charter flights. And if any of our listeners are in Dallas, like, you have to use JSX to go to Houston. So anyway, plug over. So.
All right.
This is not a sponsored segment, but so, I've been in the oil and gas industry for about 14 years. So I went to school out here at CU Boulder, mechanical engineering.
SCO Buffs.
And SCO Buffs, prime time. And, after that, first job was actually working for a DoD company, doing R&D on flight simulators and like training systems, like big motion-based video games for Department of Defense. And a buddy of mine was working for Smith Bits at the time, so a bit manufacturer, and asked me to come in and interview for a job. And that kind of triggered a whole career of traveling. I was lucky enough to kind of go around the world and meet a lot of incredible people. I would say that's the biggest thing that, the biggest benefit of working in the oil and gas industry is the people that work in it.
The best.
And the people that you interact with is second to none. So, started out here in Denver, Colorado, was a field engineer for Smith Bits. So I was, working the Western Rockies. So, traveling Utah, western slope of Colorado into Wyoming, into North Dakota. So it was, kind of pickup truck going and doing product development for bits. And then the downturn happened in 2009 and was offered a job to go overseas with Smith Bits, that was later acquired by Schlumberger. So spent 12 years with Smith International and Schlumberger on the international side. So I started in Aberdeen, did 3 years in West Africa, so did Angola.
Wow.
And a year in Romania, so Eastern Europe, and then back to Aberdeen, and then back here to Denver. So I kind of did a big kind of world tour circuit, and then back here. And along the way is just the projects, but also the people that you get to meet. Just incredible.
So wow, I guess I didn't realize that you'd spent so much time internationally. Obviously, I know you were with Schlumberger, a huge company, right? But that's fascinating. And I want to lean into that a little bit. Like, what is it like being an American? You're from New York, right? Originally upstate?
Yeah, upstate New York, just outside of Rochester.
Right, right. Same kind of latitude as me. Yeah.
Yeah. exactly. Got out of the Northeast winters and came out here where like, the weather's just great every season, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, a little bit of rain right now, a little bit of a cold winter. We don't need to encourage people to move here. We can encourage people to fly JSX. We don't need to encourage more people to move here, Nigel. So I'm going to have to overrule you there. But I want to talk about the international stuff. So you said Aberdeen, and then West Africa for 3 years.
Correct. Yeah. So we were based in Luanda.
That's amazing. What's that like?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. So West Africa has a lot of the same geology that like Brazil has. So when those two continents split, so there's actually a lot of deep water exploration and a lot of deep water drilling, which means, high tier, high technology, like kind of leading technology, deep water, offshore, drill ships and drilling rigs. So the projects were exciting. They were, very large projects, but like technically, very, very tough projects. And then also the people, the people that you work with, when you're in the expat community, it's a very close knit community, and there's people from all over the world. So it's not just, Americans, not just Brits. It's every group from around the world is kind of, brought in, and you kind of live together as well as work together. So you're living in these compounds. And Angola is a beautiful country. It's like, it has the history of civil war and kind of war torn. So there's a lot of that country still has active minefields. So people like kind of flocked into the city. So the city's really overcrowded, but the beaches are beautiful. Like we went camping on the beach and like saw sea turtles hatching. And it was like some crazy experiences that you'd never expect. Just on a random kind of weekend with a bunch of friends that we met, in the expat compound. So the work was very hard. You'd wake up and you'd get in the car like 4:45 in the morning just to beat traffic. So it was 12 miles from like the residence to the office. Yeah. And that 12 miles could take 3.5 hours.
No.
So you leave early. Yeah. I was training for a half marathon, and there was times when I would run home and I would beat like the car, like beat the bus that would take everybody back to the compound. So you do like 12-mile run in 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and the car would be like an hour behind you. So it's like you have these, it's not all smooth sailing, right? It's you're living in a third world country with a family. You still have to do grocery shopping stuff, schools, like all the normal family life and kid life is the same, right? So it's not all rosy, and you're also picking up everything you own and like moving it to a different country. So there's a lot of transition, but I think you kind of lose sight of all the hardship, and what you remember is like all the really fun times, right? And so you start really early in the morning. You probably won't get back home until about 6 p.m. And it was we were working 6 or 7 days a week just because the projects were 24 hours over there.
Sure.
So really, really hard job. Really, really difficult to kind of navigate like that work-life balance when it's like you're pretty much working, you're on call 24 hours a day. But when you do have the time off, it's just exceptional. And the kids love it as well. The kids just, they always remember that time in Africa is like the best time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And I think it offers a good perspective into, it's not just a vacation, right? You're actually there to work. Yes, you get to enjoy some of the really cool things like seeing sea turtles hatch, but you're on call 24/7 and you're working 12, 13-hour days with maybe a couple of those hours or more in a vehicle, right? Just going from one place to the next for work. Did you go offshore? Were you taking like helicopters to go out to the rigs and stuff like that?
Yeah, we had a couple of trips offshore, and you have to do your helicopter survival training, and that's pretty interesting to do that. At a training facility in Angola. I remember there's a kind of grizzly old North Sea like Scottish guy doing the training, and he had a very thick Aberdonian accent,
Come on, do it.
And,
Do it.
he's training like, no. I've got a Scottish wife, so I can't,
Okay.
I'd be skewered for the rest of the day if she heard me trying to imitate it. So, but yeah, you basically have to get training, to go out, on a helicopter, going out offshore. I wasn't really on the operational team. It was more on the management side for the business unit. So it wasn't really necessary for me to be out on the rigs. It was more of just going on field visits and kind of, QC with the clients. It's such a, there's a little bit of a pressure cooker because it's such a high tier, high expense operation that there's not a lot of room for mistakes, right? So you have to make sure that everything is double and triple checked, and I would say that's the hardest part of any operation down there is really logistics, like making sure things show up on time at the right place and the right piece of equipment or the right personnel. That was the hardest thing. And if you could be good at that, you could you do really well in those operations.
So you were with Smith Bits / Schlumberger for 12 years. Okay. And that, by my count, took you to what? Yep. About 2021? Is that right?
2020. So yeah, okay. Right around the pandemic. So the pandemic started early 2020. I left Schlumberger in May, and then had took about 6 or 7 months off to kind of refurb a home. So we bought this old kind of a fixer upper, right? Like an old like 100-year-old house that kind of needed a lot of love. And so kind of spent 6 months during the pandemic, during that summer, working on the house, and also spent time with the kids. Everybody was home. So, we weren't traveling anywhere. And, kind of making the most of that time kind of with everybody.
So and then, you spent time refurbing, right? And chilling out in Boulder at this old home that you're fixing up.
Yeah.
And then what?
So, and then I was like, well, it's probably time to start looking for a job, right? Had my fun, kind of had that relax, that 6 months off. And then really started looking into, getting back into the oil and gas industry. And I wanted to get into more of a, looking at, I really enjoyed, the kind of data and analytics side, previously in my roles. And so I was looking for roles where I could kind of leverage both, right? Experience in the oil and gas field, but also looking at kind of data analytics and like where we could, a role that we could kind of fit for optimization and how we could leverage data. And that's where I found East Daley. So East Daley Analytics was, it's still a startup. So we're a small team. We're about 25 people. We're based down in Greenwood Village, so Tech Center down in Denver. And, focuses on data analytics for the midstream space. But, really it's pipeline data all over North America. So it covers, Canada and into Mexico as well. And I think that was eye-opening for me, right? To go from an upstream, very, very energy, exploration and production side, so like E&P focused, to understanding and really getting a full picture of the entire infrastructure picture in North America. It's overwhelming how many molecules move on pipes, and how critical that infrastructure piece is. I kind of took it for granted before. You kind of see that the midstream space. It really connects the upstream and the downstream. And as soon as that connection is either constrained or broken, is a very large impact. So kind of getting that appreciation for that, and then the amount of data that we leverage on a daily basis for all infrastructure is pretty impressive.
So this is something where people listen to this podcast that are both in the industry. I'd say that's large majority, but there are some folks, in New England or other places in New York, that to them, oil and gas as a whole is just sort of this thing. And they don't really differentiate as much between upstream, midstream, and downstream. Those of us in the industry know these are very specific niches, right? And the way I've sort of looked at it is upstream is extremely complex. It's more boom or bust. Midstream is a little bit more simple, but it's very stable. Tell me about how maybe some of your assumptions were broken once you got into the midstream space after spending a dozen years in the upstream side.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's still learning every day, right? I think that's the greatest thing about the oil and gas is like every day you can kind of learn a new subsegment of the oil and gas industry. Like there's, some new technology, or it's like, how they, do coring, for geological analysis and subsurface and seismic and all the way down to the refinery and all the crackers and fractionation. So every day is a learning day, right? And every day you kind of see this new little subsegment or this little sliver of the oil and gas industry. And I would say that, the biggest thing for me is when you go from upstream to midstream, you're like, okay, well, getting on a pipe or getting to market, you don't really consider it, especially if you're on the drilling and well construction side. By the time you're done and you're moving on to the next project, kind of who cares how it gets to market, right? You're thinking about the next well and the next pad. And for me, it's just kind of the really understanding how critical it is, so nat gas, right? Natural gas has to be constrained from the minute it comes from the wellhead to the burner tip, right? So you could have a well in the Northeast, in Pennsylvania, and that gas could be going almost all the way to the West Coast, right? So the entire network, if you just Google, like pipeline infrastructure, just to see a map of it, and it's all encompassing, and nat gas especially is fungible, right? So it moves around the entire country, and how it moves throughout the country is when you actually kind of see it, when you kind of peer behind the curtain, it's amazing that it actually works. It's amazing that it actually works reliably.
Yeah.
And so much so that the normal user is just like, you just, turn on your stove or your furnace. But all the little pieces that kind of add up to get it from that wellhead to the burner tip is really impressive. Really impressive when you see it.
Yeah, that's definitely something. And I'm sure where you grew up in upstate New York, where I grew up in central New Hampshire, you just don't think about, right? Because you don't see these wells, you don't see the pipelines. It just shows up, right? And then you get involved in the space and you're like, oh man, there's a lot that goes into this. How is there not more gas leaks, right? How is there not more like environmental issues? And of course there are some, but the large percentage, oil and gas is transported very safely. And that's definitely something that we have better in this country than anywhere else in the world. On East Daley, so you guys really first hit my radar about 3 years ago. I was at W Energy Software, and I was doing work with Pembina Pipeline up in Canada, and doing like significant business for them. Was doing some account planning for 2021, and my boss at the time said, "Hey, why don't you go download some analysis on the company?" And I did some Googling, and I came across East Daley. And there was like a 34-page kind of research and analysis piece on Pembina Pipeline, and it was incredible. Like the amount of detail, the broken down spend between this is where they're going to invest their money in the future. These are company priorities. I don't know where East Daley got all this information, but it was something like $500. And I was like, oh my God, like the amount of material and information that was there was robust. And it was impressive, and it would be awesome for both an investor and, of course, a salesperson that was looking to sell into that company just because of all the information that you guys had aggregated. And I was like, wow, this company knows their shit. And then it sort of disappeared, at least from my radar, until you guys came in and a foursome registers all of a sudden for my golf thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know East Daley. And realized there's so much more than just the research and analysis. And take me a little bit to the evolution of where East Daley has gone, because clearly you guys are solid at research, right? You understand where to get the data, and now you're helping kind of visualize that data, which is valuable both for midstream companies as well as upstream companies. So I'm curious, where has the company kind of come from, and where is it going?
That's a great point. You touched on your journey for East Daley is not uncommon, right?
Yeah.
Most people are like, yeah, I've heard of you guys, right? But I don't really know what you do.
Right.
If I put it very simply, we pull in every scrap of publicly available data on pipelines and we make sense of it.
Got it.
Right. We aggregate it, organize it by an asset, and then my asset could be like a gathering, processing system in the Permian. It could be a long haul pipe in the Northeast. It could be a crude terminal in the Gulf Coast. So every asset, there's actually a significant amount of information that's publicly available, but it's messy. It's messy, and it's sometimes we have spelling mistakes. Sometimes you have these old archaic federally supported databases, like FERC data sets are not friendly to work within. So that's the every pipe that moves across a state line has it's basically interstate commerce, right? So it is it's federally regulated and it's federally reported. And then you have all your state data. So you have Texas Railroad, you have Colorado, North Dakota. So all your state data and your federal data, there's shed load of data out there, but organizing it and then having it repeatedly updated as new data comes in is really hard. So we have a dedicated data team that are like, they're magicians when, pulling all the data in and like really QCing it and making sense of it. So East Daley was born from leveraging that data to look at a particular asset and identify operational risk for the investors. So let's say a pipeline company has multiple different assets in different basins, and you have contracts on pipes. So you have contracts that whether you flow molecules or not, you have to pay. And then when those contracts roll off, if there's no actual volume flowing, then that's a risk to the investors that were signing up or investing in a pipe or a company. So that's really where East Daley started, was building up one model, one company, and identifying, okay, what's actually happening with this company. So what molecules are they flowing? What contracts do they have? What's their CapEx spend? What are the margins? And you can paint a very pretty complete picture with a lot of public available data. And then you build sophisticated tools that kind of model and bridge the gap between two known data sets. You kind of bridge the gap, like the white space in between. So if there's a simple example is a pipeline company owns 4 different assets and 3 of them are federally regulated and they have public data out there. Well, the last one you can kind of back into the missing piece, and we've just done that at scale and repeatedly on a continually updated basis. So if somebody needs to get access or get up to speed on an asset or even a basin, or really understand and how to move gas out of the basin to a market. I haven't seen anybody else out in the out in the space do it as completely as we have. Looking at it from how molecules move, but also the financials of a company that can support like their growth, their CapEx spend, their maintenance expenses. So we provide the financial models to the investors, but it's also private equity companies that want to get up to speed on a particular asset, or investment banks that have maybe there's debt that's they're kind of shopping around debt for a particular asset. But then even midstream companies and producers as well, E&Ps. What we find is that a lot of people are like, I don't really know what you guys do. And as soon as we show them, they're like, we tried to do that, or we built a model and we built it last year and we really don't want to update it again. It's like, this is great. We could just subscribe to you guys and you provide us the model and you do all the heavy lift of aggregating the data together. So I think that's the journey of people are like, yeah, I've seen your stuff, kind of seen some of your posts or some of your free content, or, we've gotten a report, but I don't really actually know what you guys do. And to be fair, we haven't been very good historically about telling people what we do. We've been really focused on like data, like building the company, but not, marketing wasn't really a big focus for us really until probably about a year and a half ago. They're really kind of going out to market and say, hey, I think we can help people.
Yeah, that's really helpful for me. And I've heard you now explain it a few times, and I've spent enough time with you guys and we've done some recruiting for you and help place people that it does make sense to me now. But if I were to put you guys in a bucket, so you're sort of like what Drilling Info or, Enverus or IHS or Well Database what they do, but for midstream pipelines and gathering, right? You're going in, you're scraping all the public data sets, you're cleansing it, you're making sense of it, and then you're providing this valuable information to operators, transporters, midstream companies, and then, of course, the capital markets, right? Because investors want this information as well. They want to get any advantage that they possibly can, and get ahead of where other potential investors would be. But what really put East Daley on the larger scale radar, I think, happened about a year ago, where you guys effectively predicted, based, I think, on the data that you had, that natural gas prices were going to drop. A year ago right now, I think natural gas was like in the 6s per MCF range, and people were incredibly bullish on it. And you guys said, not so fast, my friend. Potentially, this could be an issue. That there's flow issues. There's data that's telling us that natural gas prices is going to go down, and people were like, "Shut the fuck up!" And you're like, "Well, let's see what happens." So tell me, how did East Daley do it? You guys kind of predicted a little bit of a price decrease in natural gas, and then all of a sudden, people were like, "Wait a second, who are these guys?"
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and it's I would say, going back to your analogy of like who we are, like the different kind of companies you mentioned, I would say you add all those and then add a Bloomberg terminal for all the financial. Okay. That's who we have, right?
Nice.
That's who we are. And the nat gas call, about 14 months ago, so over a year ago, we started calling out that we were going to be oversupplied nat gas, and again, like, it has to be constrained, it has to be in a pipeline. So we are not like a top-down, global fundamentals company. Sure. We're a bottoms-up supply, like piece by piece, looking at every little individual pipeline, but we roll it up to like a macro view. And when we did that a year ago, we said, hold the phone, like the IP rates that we're seeing in the gas basin. So you have a interesting dynamic happening in the US now that is different from the last 20 years. So you have the Permian Basin that is a gas basin, right? It has associated gas that's a byproduct, really, for oil.
Sure.
So it's driven off of WTI price. So you have this associated gas that's been steadily growing, and then you have gas prices recovering. So Permian associated gas doesn't respond to gas price that we pay here at the house, right?
That's right.
So you have a rig add with oil price, but then you also have additional gas. There's gas basins like the Haynesville, into the Mid-Con, parts of the Eagle Ford, and the Northeast, the biggest one, and they are very susceptible to gas prices or Henry Hub or NYMEX prices.
Yep.
So what we started seeing is that these gas basins were ramping up with the higher commodity pricing, and we said, for every rig with the new well that's coming online, and again, like very granular, like the details matter, and we were kind of building it up. And then we can build it up over time. And we started saying, okay, not this year. This year we are undersupplied natural gas, but into next year, into 23, we see that we're building this kind of momentum of natural gas. And gas is difficult to do something with it other than put it into storage.
Totally.
So we have this huge underground storage capacity here. So, like we produce about 100 BCF a day of nat gas, and we can store about 4.1 to 4.4 TCF. So that's another 1,000 BCF. And that underground storage is like the damper of supply and demand, because we use a lot of nat gas in the winter when it's cold.
Sure.
But our production is kind of flat, and it kind of, so you have production going up and down, then you have demand going up and down, and that storage is kind of the balance of it takes off additional supply and it provides it when the demand goes up. And we just saw this kind of dynamic happening, and kind of seeing it like a little bit of a, car crash kind of starting to happen, further down, into the distance, right? And we started, commenting on it, kind of making this call. And I would say your way of putting it was, it was very apt, right? It was like, it wasn't received very well. It was a lot of skepticism.
Yeah. Who are you?
We presented to a number. Yeah. We presented like 3 different nat gas trading conferences, and we presented in Houston. So, I tell this story quite a bit because it's very indicative of like what happened. So in October time, we were in Houston, presented at this conference, laid out like we were like, hey, we believe we're going to be oversupply gas, and we're basically building it with like this moment, like the train is leaving the station. And at the time, I want to say Henry Hub was like $7.50, $8, which for anybody who's, doesn't follow Henry Hub, it's probably 3 times the price of what it normally was.
Yeah.
Like $3, $3.50 was kind of the normal rate, and it spiked up to like $10, $12. So it was like $8 or $9. Very good time for nat gas producers. And that was our entire audience. Our entire audience was E&Ps. And our analysts at the time got up and said, just laid out, just like what we're saying. And the panel moderator came up to him afterwards for a Q&A session, and what somebody got the mic and they said, hey, and he was like, you haven't talked about pricing. You've just said we're oversupplied, right? Yeah. So for me as an EP, is like pricing matters. So you haven't called for a price, and keep in mind it was $8, and he was like, well, probably going to be below $3, and maybe down to like $2. There was like this murmur and like gasp in the room. No. And we're basically saying like, hey, your pricing is going to erode in like 4 months. And then the moderator came back up afterwards like, hey, could you go up and apologize? Because like we got some really upset people. You're basically talking like their pricing is going to go away, like melt away. And so yeah, there was a lot of skepticism. A lot of people didn't believe, but we don't have a skin in it. We're not a hedging company. We're not a bank. Right. And we just said, hey, we're just looking at the data, like just the facts, right? And then November, December comes, and then into January. So I think I've just done my 9th trip to Houston, and we've been very busy with a lot of people calling us up and be like, hey, we saw your presentation, or we've seen stuff you put out, and what else do you guys do over there? I'm like, we've heard of East Daley, right? We've heard of East Daley, we've seen one of your reports, but what do you guys do over there? So it's been very busy, and we're kind of looking at like how this plays out, right? Because it's an oversupply now, but we have a very large stack of projects that are coming to the Gulf Coast for LNG. So that's liquefied natural gas. So, we could very quickly become a very integral part of the world market. So like now our WTI, like our crude is connected to an international market. Gas, not so much, but now it is, there's a horizon, there's kind of a runway for nat gas to be tied to an international market as well. And that would be a shift, this big shift for domestic, and it's a huge opportunity for U.S. Nat gas producers. So absolutely. That's the data. I would say, what do we do? We find the signal from all the noise of all the data out there. We say, I think this is going to be oversupplied or undersupplied. And for gas, we are very directionally accurate, kind of historically.
Well, where's it going now? I mean, you guys made the right call 14 months ago, and you sort of beat that drum. Here we are, mid 2023. Nat gas prices have not recovered from where they were last year. What are we looking at now for the next 12 months? Or do you need to subscribe to? Do we need to subscribe to East Daley to get that information?
Yeah, that's going to be behind the paywall. I think we have we have a view that we're still oversupplied for the remainder of this year. If you look at the kind of the forward strip, like how gas is trading towards the end of the year, we still think we're oversupplied. So I think we're still in it for a pretty tough next 12 to 14 months. Into 24 and into 25, we're going to start to see those, when those projects come online. We kind of track updates every month. So we have a revised kind of forecast every month. So it does change. We're starting to see, producers react to that lower pricing, which we, haven't seen in January and February, and then even in March. But now we're starting to see, producers guide to lower activity, lower frac crews. So I think there's the market is adjusting, but there's always a delay, right? You have rig plans, you have kind of frac crew plans. And so there's, it's like, there's always a swing. There's always a pendulum effect, right? Of supply and demand. And it isn't like a direct 1-for-1 as far as, oh, we were oversupplied, then you shut in all your wells. And you can't really do that. So I think we're in for a hard 12 months on gas pricing. Now, that said, it could be a really hot summer. That could take off a lot of that nat gas, oversupply. Because, we use nat gas for running power gen and for running air conditioners. So there's a lot of toggles. There's a lot of levers. I think that the value of, if I could like distill down the value of what East Daley does, is it looks at all the supply demand, not from a producer and a demand, like the two bookends of like what are producers doing and what are power gen doing, but it looks like the different lenses, the midstream, like the connectivity.
Yeah.
So keeping our finger on the pulse of like what's actually happening between the two. And I would see that what helps us identify dynamics that the market misses. I think that's, if I really distill down the value, is like that's it. It's like we're using midstream lens to say, okay, this is what's happening upstream and this is what's happening downstream. And cool. This is what is the oversupplied or undersupplied. And we have a very good directional understanding of that balance. So like our horizon and how our forecasts meet with constraint or oversupply, it's just been, directionally correct more often than not. So yeah, next 12 to 14 months still going to be tough. Could be, it's one of the levers that you can pull is a really cold winter next winter, right? So that's the things we're kind of monitoring month to month. And every month when we put out a new forecast, we're kind of looking, okay, here's the lens of where we think nat gas is going to go. Yeah. And then what the outer years, I don't think the reality has set in for how many projects are in place just from an infrastructure side and how to get that much nat gas to the Gulf Coast if we're going to ship it overseas.
Sure. I see how you could really geek out on this, because even just listening to you, it like plays to my mathematical nerdy brain. And I've been in analytics, but on the upstream side for the past 10 plus years. And I love it. Like I like the fact that oil and gas companies are primarily siloed in terms of how they operate. But then when you bring all that data together, you're combining profitability with production versus forecast versus downtime versus let me show you the invoices. Like that kind of stuff makes me nerd out, because just taking that holistic picture that sometimes even oil and gas companies don't do or don't do well is something where I'm like, okay, you pull this lever here, this is how it changes here. If prices go here, this drops here, right? So there's a lot of different ways to sort of look at and analyze the data, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job within the midstream space. I want to pivot a little bit here to food, because you and I both love food, and specifically, we both love pizza. So I want to talk a little bit, Mr. Nigel, about what are your favorite pizza places in Colorado?
Yeah, pizza. I would say during the pandemic and the lockdown, I kind of went deep down the pizza rabbit hole, right? I said it was like, my wife won't let me talk about pizza dough at pizza dough. Yeah, I'm not allowed to talk about pizza dough at like dinner parties. But got one of those Uni pizza ovens at home.
Oh, you do?
Like,
I've been thinking about
that. They're great. Like the wood fired ones. Like being building a big one would be awesome. But I like that we've taken it camping with us. Right? It's just fired up and ready in 20 minutes. But yeah, it's something we share. Like we both love pizza, right? It's like coming from the Northeast, it's kind of a staple. And it was, there's some really great pizza places around here, right? That we're lucky enough to kind of have in and around here. I think I told you about the place up in Nederland, right? Did I tell you about that place?
Crosscut?
Crosscut, yeah.
That's one of your favorites.
I would say my house, I make the second best pizza in Boulder County. The first best place, and first place is Crosscut. They're not sponsoring the segment either, but they make exceptional pizza.
I need to go up there. So I've followed them on Instagram for the last like 2.5 years. I had to unfollow them because my mouth was watering too much, and I don't live close enough to Nederland to be able to get there. But I have some spots in Denver that I like personally. I mentioned Famous J's to you, which is outstanding. It's the same guys that have Rosenberg's bagels, and they just roll the dough down when Rosenberg's closes and make pizza with it. That's good. I like Marco's 22nd Larimer over there, right across from Mexico City, or right next door to Mexico City. It's so good, Neapolitan style. But Lafayette has like
What's your favorite style? That's like it's pretty inflammatory. That's a loaded question, but
traditional New York style, I think, is my favorite. I'd put that number one, and then probably Neapolitan would go next with like the classic, mozzarella chunks, right? Very, very saucy. I love a good like salty and savory tomato sauce, right, on the pizza. And then the Chicago style doesn't do anything for me, but of course, like the buttery Detroit style pizza is pretty badass. So
and probably in that order, style, like in the pan.
Yeah.
That's no. I think it's there's a whole journey that you can do in pizza, right? And have you watched like that Netflix show Chef's Table, where they go through absolutely worth it. Just the cinematography of like it's a food documentary that even if you're full, at the end of it you're like, let's order up some pizza. It is incredible, and goes through what they say is the best pizza place in the States, and it's a place down in Phoenix.
Really?
So it's like so and it kind of goes through the whole history of the guy who's kind of started it. It's really good. So again, definitely worth checking out. It's Chef's Table on Netflix, and it's the first episode, and it's just like it's a banger as far as a documentary.
And we're coming up on lunchtime, and I'm so hungry right now. I think I know what I'm having for lunch. But to add on to that, right? I was in San Francisco about a year and a half ago, and was just walking around. I'm like, where should I go? Kind of want some pizza, of course. And I went to this place called Tony's in North Beach and sat down. And everybody says we have award-winning pizza. This won some sort of award at blah blah blah. And I got a Neapolitan pizza there. I'm like, damn, that was really good. And they're like, yeah, I just won some award. I'm like, yeah, everybody says that. No big deal. I was home shortly after that, and just like this Instagram thing came up, and it's like, here are the top 100 pizza places in the United States. And that was number one on this particular list. I'm like, okay, all right.
And
that validates it.
Tripped and fell into that place for lunch, right? So you're just like, landed there by mistake, and you're like, that's pretty good. Pretty good mistake to show up there.
Yeah. Well, next time I go to San Francisco, I know where I'm going. And also on that list was number 14, a place in Portland where I went for a bachelor party about 5-6 years ago. That was really, really good. And I'm like, this is okay. This is validating that I know pizza, because these are like all my top places also. And there weren't a lot of Colorado places on there, to be honest. There's one in Colorado Springs that I want to hit up. But that was like number 15 or something like that. But I don't know. I think the pizza out here is just okay. It's my take on it.
It's okay. I think it's getting better though. I think there's some really good kind of up and coming places, right? And it's, I think there's the Greenwich that's down in Denver, also has really good pizza. So I think we're kind of getting there, but I would say in general, and I'm probably going to get skewered by all my kind of Colorado natives and Denver buddies, but I don't think Denver has the best food scene collectively compared to like Houston. Like I'm going to Houston all the time. The place has incredible restaurants at like every different price point, from every different corner of the world.
Absolutely.
And everybody roll their eyes when I say this, but I think Houston has some of the best food scene from just sheer variety and value. Like, you can get an awesome like breakfast burrito for like $5 or $6, and you can go for like high tier steak dinners. And it's just they're just the entire entire spectrum of restaurants that they have is the best that I've seen. And yeah, it's not very
agreed.
It's not very Yeah, a lot of the guys that I travel with for work were just like kind of roll their eyes when I say, "No, man, we're going to have some great meals." And then after we get back from Houston, they're like, "You're right." I'm like,
Well, wait a second.
So
yeah, I mean, Houston, not a huge fan of the traffic. You know, the weather most of the year, whatever, take it or leave it. The food, though, I will not take any Houston food slander. It's the best food city that I've been to, and I've spent time in New York and San Francisco and others. Okay, we got to wrap up here, Nigel. Where can people find you? Where can they find your company?
Yeah, so you can find, go to our website. So it's eastdaily.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, we put up a lot of good free content through our website as well. That's all searchable. Great. So, through our website, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter. Look us up, and we put on a lot of really good kind of commodity supply and demand, a lot of free content as well. So we have a daily note that goes out. It's not daily, it's Tuesday to Friday, but it goes out Tuesday to Friday. And then we have a nat gas weekly that does come out every week. And we're just about to roll out a crude one as well in the next couple of weeks. So we're just, talking about more interesting dynamics that we see in the basins, and especially on the commodity side. So definitely go and check that out, because we put out a ton of really good stuff out there.
Yeah, it's great. It's great stuff. Nigel, the Nige, appreciate you coming on, my man, representing Boulder County with me. East Daley doing some big things. I'm a fan of the newsletter. I read it every day, or every day that it comes out. And appreciate you, brother. We'll keep banging the drum and telling people what's going to happen, not playing into the hype. So thanks, brother.
Absolutely, and thanks for having us on. This is great. Podcast is such a great kind of vehicle for this, and you do such a great job. So this is really fun to be here.
Appreciate it, man.
Cool.